Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for professional wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Just an hour ago, Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone announced the lineup for this year's inaugural Continental Classic Tournament. I'm very excited. They've announced the 12 names, and I will read them out in just a second. But before I do, let me introduce the panel joining me today to break down this tournament. Let's kick things off by talking about the man who you guys saw, of course, last night on NXT Off the Air, our NXT post-show, Shad. Shad, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Ben. You got a series of days of seeing me, Wrestling Republic fans, so I'm excited to be back here. And like you said, man, we got a lot of great wrestlers in this these two blocks. So I'm excited for it. But yeah, man, let's get into it.
Absolutely. I'm really, really excited for this tournament, and I mean that as well. I know I've been critical of AEW at times lately, but they knocked it out of the park with their pay-per-view last Saturday, and this tournament, well, it's looking good as well, isn't it? But also joining us, we have the AEW reviewer here at Wrestling Republic, who's not only going to get to watch all of this, but review it as well. David, how are you on this fine Wednesday?
Hello, everybody. Really excited to be here to chat about AEW Dynamite tonight and, of course, more broadly, the Continental Classic. I saw the announcement. I have some thoughts on the announcement we will get to very shortly. But, yeah, it's looking like a good list, and it should be a fun show tonight. Always nice to see some great wrestling, as I'm sure we will get. And, yeah, just coming off the back of a really, really good show in full gear. Issues, but good show overall. And, yeah, I'm excited. Let's get going.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, we have the man who was at all the AEW shows in LA last week, and that man is Carter Crisp. Carter, did you manage to stay until the end of the pay-per-view this time? That is the real question.
The pay-per-view, not only did I stay to the end, I saw the pre-show. I was a good boy. I saw the whole thing. But yeah, last week I saw Dynamite, Collision, Rampage. I do have to admit, when you see that many wrestling shows all at once, it is hard. But I mean, it was great. I mean, Full Gear was amazing. It was fantastic in person. Match of the night, I gotta give to Swerve Strickland for me. But it was just awesome week last week. I'm exhausted, but it was fantastic. Love AEW even more, and just had a great week. So happy to be here.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you back as well. And I agree. Swerve Strickland, Hangman Page. That match was just beautiful violence. We got a comment here from Numero 1 Superfly saying, Happy early Thanksgiving, Wrestling Republic. Happy early Thanksgiving to you as well, Numero 1 Superfly. But let's now get straight into the Continental Classic. Because, of course, earlier this week, I kind of complained a little bit at AEW, saying, hang on, guys, the Continental Classic starts this week. How haven't you announced the blocks yet? You can't have the tournament start before you announce who's in it. Well, I spoke too early. They did it via YouTube today, and the way they did it, I really liked. They broke it down wrestler by wrestler. It felt really important. I kind of do wish, at least I hope, that they do kind of recap a little bit of that on TV tonight. Just like, a minute worth of it all summed up to kick off the show. I think that'd be a very good way of just, hooking fans in and explaining, the tournament to them and who is in it for anybody who's not seen on the social media. But the tournament itself, 2 blocks, or as AEW are calling them, leagues. There's the Blue League and the Gold League. In the Blue League, we have Bryan Danielson, Andrade El Idolo, Brody King, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Eddie Kingston. Wow, oh wow, there was certainly some banger of some bouts in that one. But then in the Gold League, we have Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland, Roosh, Mark Briscoe, Jay Lethal, and Jay White. I mean, this is a stacked lineup, right? Of course, there are some people missing who we'd probably like to see. Kenny Omega, maybe the biggest one out of those names. Takeshita too. I mean, there are a few absent, people who aren't in it that you kind of like, they should be. But there's only 12 people who can get in at the end of the day. And I'm not complaining about a single one of these names. As it is, it's a stacked list, right? I'm excited for this tournament. Now, how it's going to work, they said it's 20 minutes per match, a 20-minute time limit, right? 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. It's not the 2-1 formula that New Japan use, and the reason Tony Khan is given for it is an English football reference, because he says he wants people to get wins, not draws. So that's why you get more points for a win, than you would for, well, obviously you get more points for a win than a draw, but you get even more points, 3 for a win. But the real question, we have today is who from these, 12 names are going to be the two facing off in the finale at World's End, December 30th, AEW pay-per-view. I'm excited. I really, really am. David, we'll kick things off with you. From these two groups, who do you think will be facing off in the finals at AEW World's End?
Well, first thing to say is that the names are great. There are some terrific wrestlers to have some terrific wrestling matches in there. I came up with my own kind of list of 12 before the tournament, which was a lot more kind of story heavy, whereas this is just put all your big hitters in one thing and let them go at it, which is always a fun tactic to do as well. I struggled kind of looking through these blocks to think who's going to win them, because what you've got to kind of look is what makes the best match at World's End. Problem is, a lot of these matches we've already seen. A lot of the big name matches, because the first thing I do think that Swerve is going to win his league, because I think they'd be absolutely mad not to have him win the league. He's got, let's have a look at this. We've got Moxley in that league. We've got Jay White in that league. Both could win, but I think Swerve is on such a high right now. I think he should win that league. On the other side, Danielson is the easy one to go for, but we've seen Swerve and Danielson very recently. So I'm going to say that the final will be Eddie Kingston trying to hold on to his titles against Swerve. And I think it'll be Eddie Kingston and Swerve at the pay-per-view, with, I think, Swerve probably winning. If they've got him at that higher momentum, why not just keep it rolling? And let's just keep building him higher. It's going to be a really good tournament. I'm really, really excited for the tournament. I do hope that we do thread some stories through, and it's not just match. We'll have to wait. That'll have to remain to be seen. But there's no weak links in this anywhere, and there's just, banger after banger after banger. And I just hope that once we get to the finals, it feels like a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with you there. I actually also agree with you on Swerve Strickland winning his league. I think it would just be ridiculous for him not to win it. He's so over right now. And I have a little bit of a theory, right? I think this championship, and this is going to be a bit of a hot take, but I think this new Triple Crown Championship for AEW, the reason that they're doing it is because I think they are going to finally do a brand split between Dynamite and Collision. And I think the Triple Crown belt will be the main belt on one brand, with the AEW Championship being the main belt on the other. And the reason I think they're doing that is very simply ratings. We all know Collision's just not doing well. In fact, it's doing very badly. Well isn't even a good enough word to describe it. Badly is how it's doing in the ratings. So I think they're going to do a brand split. So Collision feels more important, and I do think this Triple Crown belt will be the other major title in AEW, because it's a combination of a New Japan belt, New Japan Strong's belt, the Ring of Honor World Championship, that's a big one, and the new Continental Championship, which looks like quite a big belt as well. They had it today. At the announcement, they had the belt on the table. It was covered, you couldn't see it, but it looked like quite a large belt. So I really do think what they're doing here is creating a new world championship, basically, for a brand split. But I think it's going to be Swerve and Danielson in the final, a rematch of course, what we saw a few weeks ago when Hangman basically screwed Swerve out of the win. I think that'll be the rematch, and Swerve will go over and win in the end. That is my prediction. But Shard, what is yours?
Before I get into my prediction, I definitely got to give AEW kudos with setting up all the people in each respected league. I think they did a great job giving us people that are phenomenal in-ring competitors and a lot of guys who have stylistically different type of ways they wrestle. You got people who are, heavies. We got people who can high fly. We got some great technical wrestlers, brawlers. So I do really appreciate that. With your, you know, logic, obviously basing it off of this is probably going to be a brand new title, right? I mean, this is going to be a brand new title. I feel like this entire series was set for one man and a person we've envisioned the wanting to be in like G1s with Brian Danielson. So I got him winning the Blue League, and I got John Moxley winning the Gold League. I think you can go back to their initial matches they had when Danielson got into AEW within the creation of the BCC and just everything tied to them. Those two being focal names, those two being leaders of the locker room and whatnot. I feel like it'd be a very like solid moment, and also still being teammates amongst BCC and telling the story throughout that. I feel like it is going to be Danielson versus John Moxley, and I think Danielson is going to win it all. I think he will be that inaugural champion for that belt and within this Continental Classic, and I think he's going to take it home. This is kind of set to his style. He's a worker. He wants to wrestle everybody. That's he's on his last stint of doing wrestling, so I think he's going to go through that. He's going to have a lot of bangers, and I think he's going to be the winner.
That is a very, very good prediction as well. I mean, there are just quite a few names as well who you could just see being a complete shock and winning it. I mean, there are already quite a few people complaining that Daniel Garcia is in the tournament. And I'm kind of just thinking to myself, I have a feeling he's going to have a few shock victories. Because they always do in these types of tournaments. There are always shock victories. And I think that is something which maybe the American wrestling, crowds and fan base are going to be a bit shocked by when you just see, Brian Danielson losing to Daniel Garcia or something like that. I'm sure some people on Twitter will be up in arms about it. But the idea with a tournament is you're wrestling so often that you can't really prepare for these guys, and that throws you off. You might be hurt at times, and just anything can happen. And that's kind of the beauty of these tournaments. But Carter, how are you feeling going into it? What is your prediction for the Continental Classic?
Well, Ben, I'm happy you mentioned my boy Daniel Garcia because I mean, in all seriousness, I think they put together this is just going to be good matchmaking. I mean, all these guys, anyone against anyone, these are going to be really fun to watch. And also, I do think that anyone can win it. I mean, honestly, in the gold division, by the way, shout out to Ben. This graphic is beautiful. I had to print it out myself. But I'm going to go Jay White for gold division. I think after Full Gear, we got to find a place for him, and I think he's a cream of the crop talent challenger contender. If they are going to break off into two brands, I do see Jay White being the best guy for that. That being said, Swerve makes a ton of sense. I don't know 100% the matches tonight, but if someone mentioned there's going to be a Brody King and Eddie Kingston match, there's going to be a lot of chops. I'm going to guarantee you that. But I do want to say Daniel Garcia in the blue division. He's my boy. My criticism of AEW fans a little bit is I don't think they recognize just how good Daniel Garcia is in the ring. They kind of see him as a joke wrestler, but having seen him in the indies and stuff, he's amazing. I saw him 2 out of 3 days last week. But yeah, I'm gonna go with you know what? I'm gonna go Eddie Kingston, blue division. I was gonna go Danielson, but I'm gonna go Eddie Kingston, Jay White. And then that's going to be the Triple Crown Championship. You have 2 New Japan connected guys, and great matches on the way up, with Danny being in the finals of the Blue.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. I mean, that is a good point, though, actually, Carter. You mentioned about, the history, or obviously Eddie Kingston, the current New Japan Strong champion, whereas Jay White's the former IWGP Heavyweight Champion. But there aren't really any New Japan guys in this tournament. And I for one, don't have an issue with it, right? But a lot of people are saying that, hang on a second, a New Japan title is involved here. And there's no New Japan guys in the tournament. And I do get that, I kind of do get that. Maybe you could have replaced Roosh, who I love Roosh, right? But maybe you could have replaced Roosh with Tomohiro Ishii or somebody like that. But the issue is there's Tag League going on at the minute. And also, like I said the other day, we're about a month out from Wrestle Kingdom. So I don't think they want to risk any injuries.
And also remember, it's the Strong title, which is primarily fought among American talents anyway.
Yeah.
I grant you that there isn't any New Japan guys in the tournament, but if there were New Japan guys in the tournament, people would have complained that it wasn't AEW enough.
Yeah.
And that they were giving space away to other
True.
people, so they can't really win on that. I don't think.
No, that's a good point.
So I do think it is better that they've kept it in house. It does make the New Japan Strong thing complicates things. It certainly does. But New Japan Strong only run a show every month or two now. They lost their weekly TV that they used to do, so they kind of just run whenever they feel like it now. So I don't think it's that big of an issue. New Japan wouldn't have. They basically kind of getting rid of the New Japan title, in a sense, aren't they, with the Triple Crown thing? So it's clearly not a big loss to New Japan. So I do wonder with New Japan whether they're going to kind of try and transition like a lot of their main Japanese things over to America, which is why they're getting rid of the Strong title and merging it with the AEW thing. So that they're going to start to put more focus on the IWGP Heavyweight Champion competing in America. On those Strong shows instead of that title. But yeah, I don't see an issue with it.
It is just fascinating to me. Like, I think we're kind of numb at times to these Tony Khan things where he goes, this is huge.
Yeah.
But this kind of is huge, right? We're merging a New Japan title, and yes, it's the lowest down you can pretty much go in terms of a New Japan title, right? But it's still a New Japan title with the Ring of Honor World Championship, which is got a lot of history in it, and then a new title as well, and you're merging them into a Triple Crown.
I could really see this being the end of Ring of Honor, or the beginning of the end, because between the whatever they did with the TV title, where Joe just said I don't want it, to the tag titles being treated as a complete joke prop, basically on somebody else. Now the world title's being merged for something else. I'm just looking at it and I'm just seeing just all these kind of doors being slammed for Ring of Honor, and I feel like it might become a library product where they use the ancillary and just don't make the TV show anymore because it's in a rough spot.
Poor Ring of Honor, because it could have been their perfect developmental brand. And I know when I said that months ago, everyone was like, how dare you say that? Ring of Honor is better than a developmental brand. Well, as soon as it was bought by Tony Khan, it was impossible for him to make another alternate product, because let's just be real about it. I say it all the time. There's too much top quality wrestling. You can't treat it like it's, that same level. But you could have done it as an NXT Black and Gold like developmental, where you have phenomenal wrestling on it, but it's also the talent of tomorrow, the next top AEW guys, for the AEW hardcore fans to go and watch in really small venues. Maybe, chuck it on like an AEW network or something like that, instead of doing just £10 a month or whatever it is for just Ring of Honor alone. David, I do fear you're right. I really do fear you are right. But now, let's move on. And let's be a bit more positive. Actually, before we move on, there's a couple of comments here. We got firstly number one Superfly saying, for the finale, he would like to see Eddie Kingston versus Swerve Strickland, or Bryan Danielson versus Jay White. That one is a little bit spicy. I would like that.
We've never seen that match before, have we?
No,
Jay
I don't
White,
think
Danielson?
we have. No.
That's something I didn't think of. Oh yes, please to that.
Really good.
Yeah, great idea.
Take my
Good
money,
idea,
Tony
Wyatt.
Khan. Then we've also got Bobby saying he's interested in seeing Eddie Kingston versus Brody King, which we will be seeing at some point in
this week.
this tournament. Oh,
It's this week. They have announced it for Collision. It
well,
is Eddie
that
Kingston
is
and Brody
filth.
King. Yeah.
Well, it's
on
going up
Collision.
against Survivor Series, so I won't be watching it, but
Yeah, they've
I
put
wish I
Collision.
was.
Oh, I am. Collision
Watch
and Collision and Rampage, one after the other. Why is it that as soon as I took over reviewing Rampage, they've started to mess around with when Rampage is on? Put it on against SmackDown and leave it there, please.
Why
For
on
my
earth
sake.
Who thought it was a good idea? Hang on a second, guys. Let's move Rampage to the Saturday to go head-to-head with Survivor Series. Like, it's not going to work. There's tons of, people are speculating CM Punk will return. Randy Orton is returning. That is announced. And they're trying to counter-program. You're going to lose. Like, you lost.
Yeah, just means I would have to watch Survivor Series at a different point, which is really annoying. But it's like...
Well, unless Punk comes back, in which case you'll be happy you missed it, but...
Oh yeah, absolutely. if Punk comes back, I just won't bother. I'll just that's it. I'll be AEW for life. I'm joking.
But no, I do agree with you. And in all seriousness, I'll be watching Collision the next morning. Don't you? Actually, I won't be because I'm going to a Progress show. More on that later in this week. But I will certainly be watching Collision when I get the chance to. But now let's talk about tonight's Dynamite, which I undoubtedly will be watching. And let's start by talking about Roosh versus Jay White. We just spoke about Jay White, right? He just came off that loss, the main event of Full Gear to Maxwell Jacob Friedman. A lot of people said he came out of that match looking just a tad weak because, of course, MJF was injured. They kind of just overcomplicated the entire thing, right? That's what happened. And yeah, Jay White kind of did look a little weak coming out of it. So tonight, he does need a win, and he needs the win over Roosh. But this tournament, I think, is going to be a breakout moment for Roosh. It's going to be when AEW fans really figure out the talent that Roosh has, the talent that he possesses. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, I think will be a banger all about. I'm putting the name on it. I'm putting the pressure on it, and I'm saying it. But David, what about you? Who do you have in the Continental Classic first round bout between Roosh and Jay White of Bullet Club Gold?
Now there's two ways you go with this. You either have Jay White win because he looked like an absolute pleb against Max at Full Gear, losing basically a 3-on-1 handicap match. After against an injured man. So you either give him the win to go, see, we haven't forgotten about Jay White, or we start a Jay White losing streak through this tournament, and we use it to develop a story somewhere else. I think they're going to go with option one, and I think Jay White is going to win this match. What I do think will happen is that they will hit each other very, very hard. Jay White will probably target an injury. I will very much enjoy myself. You will very much enjoy yourself. Everyone will enjoy themselves, and then we move on to the next match. That's kind of the issue with these kind of league matches to start off with, is because like a lot of these guys haven't got the most amount of history. So it's not like you're going in with kind of, these preconceived. Later in the tournament, we'll get that. Absolutely, we will. But for these kind of, particularly the matches they've announced for the first night, it is very much, these will be really good wrestling matches. But I'm hoping that they give you a bit more sort of meat to chew on there. But it's going to be a fantastic match. I am going to go for Jay White narrowly.
Oh, okay. So you think it could be a tight one, and that is a good point as well. You said about him going on a losing streak. Jay White is no stranger to that in tournaments. I think it was 2 years. It was either 2 years in a row or 1 year break, 1 year, where he, in the New Japan G1 Climax, he did just lose the first couple of matches and then end up going to right into the later stages in the tournament. So that could definitely be a possibility. But now let's move on to the next round. My pick to win, Swerve Strickland, the man of the hour, the man who's everybody's talking about, and the man who had a 5-star classic against Hangman Adam Page this past week at Full Gear. Swerve Strickland will be facing Jay Lethal tonight in the opening round. This match is going to be an interesting one, right? Because you have Swerve Strickland and Jay Lethal. Two guys who've kind of, I don't want to say relied, but have more often than not had interference in their matches as of recently? Well, of course, we know this tournament, that's not happening. It's wrestling, and that's it. No interference whatsoever. They haven't said the punishment, but I think it's quite as simple as Tony Khan just not going to block that to happen. But Swerve, Jay Lethal, these two guys, we know they're great wrestlers. Jay Lethal, I don't think he's managed to show that in AEW that much, but today he gets the opportunity. This one could be a hidden gem of a match. But Swerve Strickland, I do believe, will be getting that victory. Shard, what is your prediction for this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much set in stone that Swerve is gonna win this match. You know, Jay Lethal is a veteran in here. He's got a lot of history in professional wrestling. He does do solid character work, and he is a pretty, you know, s- set heel as well as Swerve, which makes these interesting because you're gonna get to see baby faces shake it up, and you're gonna get to see heels shake it up against each other. But you just can't have Swerve losing this match. He's coming off of a 5-star classic. He's got the entire wrestling world buzzing. It'd be malpractice to have him lose the first round versus Jay Lethal. I would assume like the betting odds are like minus a million that Swerve uh would win. Like I don't think he's gonna lose this match. So I definitely think Swerve is gonna take this W. Jay Lethal will probably be positioned in these matches to lose to some of these people. I don't think he's gonna get a lot of points in it. Just kind of where he's at within his character and how he's booked. So yeah, I got Swerve taking it, and I think we're gonna see the momentum continue pushing for him. And like you said, you got him winning it. I would not be opposed to that winning it all.
Yeah, certainly Swerve Strickland is probably the guy I think a lot of people do want to win the entire thing. You mentioned betting odds, right? If I was a betting man, which I wasn't, and if there was betting on this, which I don't think there is, I actually don't think Jay Lethal would be a bad underdog bet. And the reason for that is Tony Khan in this, the announcement video they did earlier today. It was almost like a press conference type thing. It was quite cool, to be honest with you. Tony Khan said that Swerve Strickland is hurt coming out of that match. And Tony Khan kind of hinted that he wasn't going to do very well in the tournament, which is kind of why I also think one of the reasons why I think he's going to win it, because of Tony Khan saying that. But who knows? First match, days out from, that match against Hangman. Maybe he takes one loss this tournament, and it's to Jay Lethal in the opener, and that's Jay Lethal's only points he gets all tournament. That would be very New Japan-esque in the G1, and part of me could see it happening, but I also will agree and go Swerve on it. But now, last but certainly not least, let's get into the other first round bout tonight, because we got Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe is coming into this tournament. He's got a point to prove. He wants to prove himself as a singles competitor. He's been doing it in Ring of Honor. Well, now he's here in AEW, and he wants to take it to that next level. He wants to shock the world in this tournament and, really prove himself. And I actually think he will prove himself, because tonight I think he will beat his opponent, and his opponent is Jon Moxley. I think Jon Moxley is going to take a shock first round loss in this tournament, and Mark Briscoe is going to get the win to establish himself as, proper competitor in this tournament. I think Moxley's form will improve as the tournament goes on, but I do think he's going to have a couple of losses in the beginning, and that's going to be too much for him then to end up winning the tournament. And this is just because he's down on momentum right now. He lost to Orange Cassidy, and I think they're going to have a couple of matches where Moxley loses off the bat, and then as time goes on, he picks up more wins and ends up finishing, near the top of the table, but not quite good enough to advance to the finals. But Mark Briscoe versus Jon Moxley, this is going to be a brawl tonight. It's going to be a brawl. I'm looking forward to it. It's just going to be good wrestling, isn't it, Carter? What is your thoughts on this one?
Wow, Ben. Wow, that's a bold call. Well, I was trying to pull out my Briscoe Forever armband for this one. But that's what I was thinking about too. Is I was watching tag team grappling of Quintet, and what about a early loss and a points comeback? I think that's very possible in this point system. And I was going to say that would be I mean, if you're going to have the Moxley Danielson Blackpool Combat Club final, what about an early loss from Mox? Maybe he's down, and then he has a points. He comes back on points down the road. You know, I could see something like that by doing it the I don't know, Premier League, or I'm going to call it soccer. I'm sorry to everyone, but that style with
that's outrageous, Carter. How dare you?
Football. But you know, it can kind of build up sort of a comeback. So that's something to think about here in these early matches. You know, what if someone loses, Daniel Garcia, and then comes back later? I do have a little bit of a different prediction. I think Mark Briscoe is shining as a singles competitor, and you do kind of lose that when you're rock solid in a tag team. But I think Mox is going to win. But I think it's going to be a great match. It is going to be hard hitting. There's going to be slaps like that Brody King match, and it's going to be fun. I hope Mox is careful on the pile drivers. But no, I think it's going to be a great match. I do predict a Moxley win, but keep an eye out for the points comebacks is all I have to say. Football style, too.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, Carter. I mean, here's the thing. We've seen it with the New Japan G1 Climax, where there were so many different ways you can book one of these tournaments, right? It's not as simple as you need to win every match. It really, really isn't. Like you said, Carter, the points-based system, it makes it so fun. It makes it so interesting. I've always been a fan of New Japan's G1 Climax. I've always been a fan of those Japanese, esque wrestling round-robin tournaments, and I'm so glad we're seeing one in America finally. We saw kind of one in NXT a few years ago, but it was like 4 people in a block. It didn't work. It was really, really weird. But this, I think, might be the first successful attempt, and I'm really looking forward to it. But so is Bobby Petito in the comments, saying he's just really looking forward to watching the wrestling matches, and I couldn't agree with you more. We said earlier this week that this tournament isn't necessarily going to fix it won't fix all of AEW's issues, because they need to tell stories. But what it could do is give them a bit of momentum right now when they desperately need it. Well, I say desperately need it. Obviously, they had a great pay-per-view. But Collision and Rampage desperately need it. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing the wrestling matches. David, like you touched upon earlier, they need to do some stories coming out of it to then hook people in for longer. And if they do that successfully, if they do, we're in for a treat, guys. We really, really are. But now let's move on. And let's move on to talk about something non-Continental Classic related, because tonight, everyone's favorite father figure, Christian Cage, will return to AEW Dynamite to rechristen Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne following their loss to Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allin, who's now climbing a mountain last Saturday. But this is going to be an interesting one, right? And not the segment itself. The segment itself, I'm hoping, is good. Because I said it the other day, Christian Cage feels like he's lost some momentum the last few weeks to me. Hopefully this gets it back for him. But what's really interesting is, will they now do a feud between Christian Cage and Adam Copeland for the TNT Championship? Or will the two branch off and go their separate ways? I really do think that this is something which we're all going to disagree on. I very firmly do not think Christian Cage and Adam Copeland should just even touch again in AEW for about 6 to 12 months, if I'm being completely honest. I think really establish Christian with this gimmick, really have him beat some more people, and just, continue to elevate Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus. Because ever since the Nick Wayne, turn, which felt like a big moment in that moment, just before another big moment happened, which overshadowed it in Adam Copeland's arrival in AEW. But we need to get Nick Wayne back on track. We need to do something to get this trio, to get the patriarchy back on track. And I do think Christian Cage facing Adam Copeland is not the move for now. But Carter, what about you? Is this the move that you want to see? Copeland, Christian, or should we wait on that for a while longer?
I mean, as controversial as it is, they did just spend the big bucks on Ric Flair. So he might be somewhere in the, I don't know. I mean, I think this is, Ben, you mentioned kind of, and Cardi Cornette would criticize this, the indie-rific booking of AEW, where it's kind of like, us with our action figures going, okay, let's, Brody King, Eddie Kingston, no story, great wrestling, sort of deal. This is a little bit of the opposite, where you have some WWE centric guys with Christian and Adam Copeland, and it's just, like the storytelling from Christian is hilarious. I mean, every time he's on TV, it's super funny. What do I think is going to happen? There's going to be some sort of new beef. I don't know if it's going to be with the Sting, Darby Allin. Sorry, I need to call him Edge. But with that faction, I think you might have someone new coming out. I mean, I will guarantee that it will be hilarious. I do want to see more of Nick Wayne. I agree with you, Ben. Maybe something for him, but I think it's just Christian's going to say some wild stuff, and we're going to have a new feud. Who that is, I'm at a loss. And I do think I totally agree with you. I think it's way too early for Christian and Edge to kind of rekindle that. I think that's a down the road when both of them are kind of, specifically Edge is on the way out. But yeah, I think it's just going to be funny, and we're going to find out what's next for the what is it, the patriarchy? I almost called them the alpha males. The patriarchy. We're going to find out where they're going next. I mean, their match at Full Gear was amazing, and super good. So we'll see what happens there. I will say it will be funny though. Christian is always hilarious since he's gotten to AEW.
He really is always hilarious. But talking about somebody who's hilarious, Carter, how is your cousin Carty Carnett doing? We haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. Is he all healthy and fine?
He's been constructing a tag team grappling. I had people at the gym ask about him actually. They're wondering where Carty Cornette is, so we'll have to bring him back. But he's been working on some rules for a new wrestling league. But he's happy with what he called me to tell me. He says Tony Khan's been throwing real wrestling. This tournament's an example of real wrestling. So him and Ignacio, I think they're both in good spirits, especially for the holidays. So he's all good. We'll bring him back.
Well, I'll go back to you. Unfortunately, Ignacio is not too happy. He's not in good spirits. In fact, he commented on Chaos is Real, calling Hangman Page versus Swerve Strickland an excellent match. He commented on that reel, a comment which I cannot read out on air. It was that bad. So
I love it. I love Ignacio's way of, we can't, like, this match, this isn't real wrestling. But what is the kind of 1980s Dusty Rhodes bloodbaths where they bleed all over the shop and hit each other really hard with weapons. It's like, what's the difference? Beyond the year, there's, I mean, granted, like, I get people saying it was too violent. I get it. I felt the same way. I felt quite sick watching some parts of it. That's the point,
Yeah.
And it's just, I think, yeah, I've said my piece many times. We will settle it. We will settle it at the table at a point soon. But
Chaos, get the tables. He's getting them very, very.
If the Dudleys were around in 2023, he'd hate them as well.
Oh, so that's probably true. But now, but of course, Christian, Luchasaurus, Nick Wayne, Shard. I'll go to you next. What are your thoughts? Adam Copeland, Christian, or should they do something else for the time being?
No, I don't think you need to do something else in the time being, because I get your point where you feel that it doesn't necessarily need to happen between him and Christian first, but we can't ignore the fact that I feel a lot of the reason of Edge being back, or Adam Copeland being on AEW, is aligning with Christian and getting to a point where they get to have a tag team run together. So I think them getting that initial match against each other will happen sooner than later. For tonight, I feel like we're gonna get the first domino uh, dropping in regards to the faction starting to break apart a little bit, and I think that first person that you'll start seeing break apart from the faction will be, there's gonna be something between Christian and Luchasaurus. There was a telling portion where Christian just up and left. He left his two people out there, and that's a cowardly thing to do. I don't think these, Nick Wayne, being young as he is, he may be naive, but I think Luchasaurus is kind of seeing a lot of reoccurring patterns of how Christian takes advantage of him, and I feel like we're gonna get that story where it'll probably be a case where the next feud for Christian is going to be amongst his two peers, and we're going to start seeing that break apart, and maybe it will tie to Edge, and maybe him and Edge get that match against each other, and it will be Edge having that fight with his brother, getting him back to a regular mind frame and going against these two. I feel like that's what we're going to lead to at some point. But for tonight, I don't know if Copeland will be part of it. You may be able to take him out of the picture for a little bit, but we'll definitely get the first initial cracks between the patriarchy. Is that what they're called again?
They are, but Chad, I'm presuming I misheard. Did you just say that Christian was taking advantage of Luchasaurus?
Oh, he's definitely taking advantage of that.
How dare you! Do you not understand? Christian Cage is the father figure that everybody deserves and all Elite Wrestling deserves, so Tony Khan should step down as CEO immediately so Christian Cage can save the company. No, but in all seriousness, I just had a thought. Why isn't... Well, I know why. But Adam Copeland in the Continental Classic would have been sick. It really, really would have been. Because
yes, I agree with that.
He came to the company, said all these dream matches. And I know he's only been there for like a month and a half. But like we've not properly seen him in, any singles action other than against Luchasaurus yet. So it would have been sick to see him. Obviously, I'm presuming it's something to do with his health or whatever. But... can we see Adam Copeland, do some interesting things? Because clearly he wants to do those interesting things. Because he said he wanted to do those interesting things. But, David, is a feud now with Christian Cage one of those interesting things for Adam Copeland?
Yes, it is. I agree with Shard on this. I think that the tag match was the 6-man tag, which was great fun, by the way, was designed to, I think, set up Cage and Copeland, Cage running away. I think that on Dynamite tonight, they're just going to do the rechristening thing, and Christian's just going to refuse to acknowledge he ever walked out on his team, and he was just come up with all these different excuses. I think we get Copeland and Cage 1 out of the way at World's End, and I think you have Copeland win the TNT title. At the end of that match, Copeland goes to shake Cage's hand, Cage refuses, walks away. We then have the next year's worth of, what we transition then into is Edge doing basically the John Cena US Open Challenge. Ish. What I mean by that is an older veteran using a title to kind of help younger wrestlers through different stories. Let Copeland do all these things that he's wanted to do, while Cage starts to crack and just go more and more insane. And then later down the line, then you can have them rekindle things again if you want to do the tag team. But the thing is, I don't think it currently makes sense for Copeland to just ignore Cage and just move on. I don't see, like, from a kayfabe and storyline perspective, I don't see how that works. But at the same time, I do want Edge to do Copeland to do other things because, I like the Cage. I disagree that he's lost momentum, Cage, in this whole thing, but I do want to see him do other things. So I think you get this match out of the way, end of the year, and we go into 2024 in the next phase of Copeland and the next phase of Cage. Cap off the year, first part of the storyline done, and then let them go off and do their own thing into 2024.
Once again, with this hashtag fake news that Christian Cage ran away at Full Gear. I already said what happened, right? He saw the unfair advantage that they had bringing out Ric Flair. And Christian Cage was concerned for the health of Ric Flair as well. He didn't think that he should be in such a violent environment at his age. So he went to call for help. And security were just no good. Don't blame Christian Cage, blame security, because they didn't help him when he was asking for help and trying to save poor old Ric Flair, along with his team, Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus. Tonight they will be rechristened, and they will be all champions in AEW before the end of the year. Yeah, you can guarantee that. I know we've only got a month and like 9 days left, but we'll figure that out in another point. But thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a fun show. Continental Classic is exciting. AEW right now, Last few weeks we've been talking about it. We've kind of been a little like down about it. Now we're right back up. We're right back excited for it. And that's what this tournament was designed to do. If you are on YouTube, please thumbs up and subscribe. If you're on Twitch, a cheeky follow is always good. And a cheeky 5 stars on Spotify makes my day. Thank you to David. Thank you to Sheldon. Thank you to Carter for joining me on this fine Wednesday. Tomorrow night, as always, Throwback Thursday, Clark Taylor, Shad, and Anthony will be doing it, and it will be at 11 p.m. UK time, 6 p.m. Eastern, and 3 p.m. Pacific. Actually, it won't be, sorry, it's Thanksgiving special tomorrow. It will be at 1 p.m. No, wait, 11 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Pacific. That's the one. All these time changes, it's confusing me. Happy Thanksgiving to the Americans tomorrow. We'll see you guys in